Laurelton Hall was never your typical New York mansion. Designed by Louis Comfort Tiffany himself and finished in 1905, every inch, 84 rooms, hundreds of acres, was crafted to catch the light in ways no other home dared. But in 1957, flames tore through this masterpiece in a fire still officially labelled undetermined. Investigators found no cause, no lightning, and no wiring failure, only rumours and missing art. Why did Tiffany's ultimate creation, built to be eternal, vanish almost overnight? The mystery of why this New York mansion burned down is just the beginning, because what happened inside Laurelton Hall has never been fully explained. In 1902, Louis Comfort Tiffany began work on what would become his greatest personal achievement, Laurelton Hall. He didn't hire a famous architect or hand off the project to a construction firm. Every detail, from the soaring eastern domes to the smallest tile, was drawn, selected, and overseen by Tiffany himself. The site stretched across hundreds of acres on Long Island's North Shore, with the main house alone containing 84 rooms. It was a mansion built not just to impress, but to transform how people experience space and light. Tiffany's vision reached beyond the conventions of the Gilded Age. Instead of marble columns and rigid symmetry, he filled Laurelton Hall with handmade tiles, iridescent glass, and carved wood that seemed to shimmer at every hour. The walls and windows became a living canvas for his experiments in colour and transparency. Even the floors caught the sun, reflecting shifting patterns throughout the day. The centerpiece was a domed loggia inspired by Islamic architecture, its glass mosaics glowing gold and blue against the landscape. The project demanded a fortune, nearly $2 million by the time it was completed in 1905, a staggering sum for the era. But for Tiffany, money was only a tool for achieving his dream, a home that would be both sanctuary and masterpiece. Guest books from the first years describe Laurelton Hall as a place where art, nature, and architecture blended so perfectly that the boundaries disappeared. For visitors, it was like stepping into a world that had never existed before, one built entirely from the imagination of a single artist. Inside Laurelton Hall, every detail was meant to awaken the senses. Sunlight filtered through stained glass windows, scattering colour across the walls and floors. The air carried the scent of blooming orchids and rare ferns, cultivated by Tiffany himself in indoor gardens. Guests wandered through rooms where even the ceilings shimmered with hand-cut glass, and the sound of water from hidden fountains echoed softly from the central loggia. Tiffany welcomed artists from around the world, offering residencies that turned the mansion into a living workshop. Painters and sculptors worked side by side, inspired by the ever-changing play of light. The guest book from those years reads like a roll call of awe. One visitor wrote, "A cathedral that breathed where time moved with the colours." At the heart of the estate stood Tiffany's personal chapel, brought brick by brick from the 1893 Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Mosaic walls glowed gold and cobalt under the afternoon sun. Here, Tiffany led quiet gatherings, inviting guests to sit in silence as coloured light danced over their faces. Every evening, the house seemed to shift with the fading day, glass panels turning from blue to amber, then to deep violet. For Tiffany, Laurelton Hall was not just a home, but a world built to hold beauty in every hour. Those who visited often left changed, convinced they had glimpsed something irreplaceable, a harmony of art and nature that could not exist anywhere else. After Louis Comfort Tiffany's death in 1933, the fate of Laurelton Hall rested with the foundation he had created. But the endowment never matched the mansion's appetite for care. Trustees faced mounting bills as the glass windows fogged with moisture and gardens grew wild, swallowing pathways that once shimmered with colour. By the mid-1940s, the estate's finances were in freefall. The foundation began auctioning off artwork and furnishings, with catalogues from 1946 listing treasures that once filled the halls. Each sale chipped away at Tiffany's vision, but the proceeds barely covered basic repairs. The staff changed often, with caretakers cycling through, each one less able to manage the delicate systems Tiffany had engineered. Board meeting minutes show disputes over what could be saved and what had to go. By 1949, the trustees sold the entire property for just $10,000, a fraction of its worth. The new owners inherited a house already battered by time and neglect. Rooms were closed off to save on heating, and humidity seeped into the woodwork and glass. Without steady funds or expertise, the fragile harmony Tiffany had built began to unravel. The foundation's struggle to preserve Laurelton Hall set the stage for everything that followed. On a cold night in March 1957, flames tore through the shell of Laurelton Hall. The first alarm came from neighbours who saw fire flickering above the tangled roofline, then leaping from one wing to the next. Firefighters from Nassau County arrived to a scene unlike any they had faced before. Instead of a single blaze, they found flames erupting from several distant points at once, some in the main hall, others in the outbuildings, each burning with unnatural speed. The glass mosaics and carved wood that once shimmered in sunlight now fueled the inferno, sending showers of molten colour into the night air. Witnesses later described the fire as bursting outward, as if some force inside the house had driven the flames through the stained glass windows. Over the next 3 days, crews fought to contain the destruction, but the mansion's isolated location and maze-like layout made their work nearly impossible. No lightning had struck. There were no storms, no reports of faulty wiring, and no clear explanation for how so many fires could have started at once. When the smoke finally cleared, almost nothing remained but scorched stone and twisted metal. The official report listed the cause as undetermined. For decades, rumours have filled the silence left by missing records and unanswered questions. But the true story of that night has never been fully told. In the weeks after the fire, questions multiplied about what had truly been lost. Inventory lists from the foundation no longer matched what was found in the ruins. Several of Tiffany's signature stained glass windows and rare lamps were missing, never accounted for in the charred remains. Fragments of his glasswork surfaced in storage rooms and outbuildings that the fire never touched, raising doubts about when they were moved. Auction catalogues from the late 1940s and early 1950s list items described as from Laurelton Hall, yet their paths remain unclear. The gaps in records left a trail of suspicion, fueling theories of quiet removals, hasty sales, or more deliberate disappearances. In the aftermath, Hugh and Jeanette McKean arrived from Florida, determined to save what remained. As founders of the Morse Museum, they negotiated with local officials and sifted through the ruins, recovering stained glass windows, mosaic fragments, and charred columns. Each artifact was carefully documented, shipped south, and accessioned into museum records. Yet, as the McKeans catalogued their finds, they discovered key gaps. Entire pieces listed in earlier inventories were gone, and the official fire marshal's report, which might have explained the losses, had vanished from county archives. The story of Laurelton Hall's rescue became as much about what was missing as what survived. Even after the ruins of Laurelton Hall were cleared, the land where the mansion once stood remained empty. No new homes or businesses ever appeared on the site. Locals sometimes spoke in hushed voices about the old foundations, claiming that on certain nights the ground would seem to shimmer as if hidden glass still caught the moonlight. Some long-time residents described flickers of light among the trees or a faint trace of smoke drifting through the air, long after the fire was gone. The property's silence became its own legend, with stories passed quietly from neighbour to neighbour, each one adding a new layer to the mystery that refuses to fade. Laurelton Hall stood for just 52 years before the 1957 fire erased nearly every trace of Louis Comfort Tiffany's vision. Official records confirm multiple ignition points and an undetermined cause, with the Nassau County Fire Marshal's report later missing from the archives. Decades of decline left the mansion vulnerable, and inventories show that several windows and lamps vanished before the blaze. Salvaged fragments now reside in museums, but whole rooms exist only in photographs. The land has never been redeveloped. Aerial images still reveal discoloration where the main hall once stood. Despite extensive investigation, the exact sequence of events remains unresolved, supported by conflicting witness reports and lost documentation. Today, Laurelton Hall's fate is a reminder that architectural masterpieces can disappear, not just through neglect, but through unanswered questions that history leaves behind.